Respected jurors, ladies and gentlemen of the court, you have now heard all the witnesses and the court is ready to move to a verdict. As Mr. Defenderson, my job is to tell you how the evidence should lead to a not guilty verdict for MacBeth. Why do I propose that MacBeth should not be guilty of the murder of King Duncan? Well, all you have heard is circumstantial evidence. No one even witnessed MacBeth kill King Duncan, and the evidence shows others could have been responsible. Furthermore, most of, if not all, witnesses admired MacBeth and thought he was a brave, fearless hero. Even King Duncan believed this and bestowed him with the honors of land and title. How could he now be considered a murderer? To prove this, I'm going to walk you through the testimony we heard. You have heard from many witnesses over the course of this trial with a lot of information, so I'll give you my proposition starting with the three witches. The three witches admitted their intention was to manipulate MacBeth and to ensure he knew his future was to be the King of Scotland. They also admitted they take pleasure in toppling proud men. Do you not think they could have manipulated others to do the deed and not MacBeth? Can you truly say that they did not have a hand in the murder of King Duncan with their evil ways and trickery? When Satan, MacBeth's servant, was on the stand, he confirmed that MacBeth was in his bedchamber, and the prosecution implied that he was waiting to hear about the death of King Duncan. If this were so, and MacBeth was in his bedchamber, how could he have killed the king? In the testimony given by King Duncan's son, Donalbain, he was told by the nobleman Lennox the king's guards were the ones responsible for the death. Their hands and faces were all badged with blood, so were their daggers, which were unwiped and found upon their pillows. MacBeth in his rage did kill the guards, so they were never arrested or questioned. This evidence is the most clear-cut we have about who killed the king. Yet MacBeth is blamed for killing the guards. His motive for this was to cover his crime. I have another theory. MacBeth killed the guards to revenge his beloved king. Then there are the king's sons, Donalbain and Malcolm, who fled to different parts of the country because they were supposedly in fear of their lives. Their reactions when they were told their father had been killed were very calm. In fact, they whispered between themselves and did nothing. They did not vow to avenge their father's death. Instead, they left as quickly as they could. Perhaps there's another reason the brothers were not upset by their father's murder. Perhaps they had something to do with it. When Hecate, the queen witch, was questioned, she confirmed that MacBeth was not evil but misguided. She also said his destiny was fixed. This makes me think the witches had a lot to do with the murder and that MacBeth was not responsible. The doctor who treated Lady MacBeth observed her walking in her sleep while trying to wipe the blood from her hands. She was shouting about so much blood in the old man, which you could deduce was King Duncan. Again, this is another person who could have been the murderer rather than MacBeth. She had motive because she desperately wanted to be the queen. The old man that was put on the witness stand confirmed that there were other suspects besides MacBeth who people believed had killed the king. The guards were the first, and then Malcolm and Donalbain, because they left as soon as they could to hide. So far, all those that have been questioned have no evidence that MacBeth killed King Duncan. In fact, their testimony would lead you to many other people besides MacBeth. If you recall, the next person to be questioned was Ross, who delivered the news that MacBeth would be named Thane of Cawdor, and given all the land as a reward for defeating the king's enemies. This was a great privilege and honor that King Duncan had bestowed on him. MacBeth seemed surprised by the reward, and the promotions he received shocked him. Does this make any sense to you, that MacBeth would turn around and kill the king that he fought so mightily to protect? The final witness, Macduff, also provided no proof that MacBeth was the murderer. His testimony was all conjecture, such as MacBeth killed the guards to keep them from talking rather than another reason, which might have been killing them because he was horribly angry and felt he was avenging his king. Nothing that Macduff provided the court could provide evidence that MacBeth was guilty. Respected jurors and members of the court, after reviewing the testimony, I believe you will agree that there is not a shred of proof against MacBeth. All the evidence is circumstantial because MacBeth did indeed kill the guards, and however, I insist that he did not kill King Duncan. MacBeth was a warrior who fought with everything he had to keep his king safe, risking his own life to do so. Does it make any logical sense that he would then turn and kill the same person he worked so hard to save? Jurors, as you decide this case, you need to consider the facts. Were there any witnesses that saw MacBeth kill King Duncan? Was there any evidence to show that he was responsible? Were there others that had a strong motive to kill the king? Was there other evidence that implicated others, such as the guards' bloody knives? With the lack of evidence to prove that Macbeth was guilty, in fact, the evidence points in other directions. How can you convict Macbeth of this evil crime? In the eyes of the law, you cannot convict someone based on circumstantial evidence and rumor. As logical, impartial judges, you need to review the evidence, and I believe you will come to the right answer. Macbeth is innocent.